Welcome to another riveting session of the Salesforce Business Analyst Trailblazer Community Group. Possibly the Trailblazer Community Group with the longest name because I also forgot the in parentheses virtual. So today we have a Discovery of Riches, 5 steps to starting a Salesforce journey. But first, some housekeeping items. So the meeting will be recorded, edited, and posted on YouTube. Now, this will happen in a more expedited fashion the more that you nag me on LinkedIn or Slack. But it will make it there eventually, I promise. Also, as far as today, make sure you keep yourselves on mute if you are not chatting. Generally with our speakers, we like it if the questions kind of stay at the end. So try and keep yourself on mute until more towards the end of the session. But if there's something that you want to bring up, feel free to throw it into our DMs or into Q&A. Q&A we will turn on as soon as the speaker starts, and we'll start collecting questions at that point. So at any time, if you think of something, just throw it straight into the QA and we will capture it then. Also, keep an eye for pinned posts at the top. If anybody says anything particularly memorable, I will pin it to the top just so they don't kind of scroll by with all the other generally bad jokes that I will make in the chat. Okay. Our agenda today, introductions. I don't even know why I put that on the agenda. It's kind of like a given, but whatever. Okay. Introductions, then a Discovery of Riches, 5 steps to starting a Salesforce journey with Tokeer Ahmed. Badass BA news. So we have a few items today to go over, and then we will do the unrecorded and unfiltered chat. So that's where we will turn off the recording. Please talk to us about. Oh, sorry.
That was me. Sorry.
Yes. Pay did not read the housekeeping item about the if you're not talking, get out. Okay. Thank you for that was intentional. We were just trying to demonstrate. Okay, so afterwards we'll have some news. We'll have some chit chat. The chit chat again is unrecorded. We tend to really like having more of that unfiltered conversation. We've had all sorts of really interesting discussions, so I do encourage folks to stay for the last 30 minutes of the event, even though it isn't necessarily full of speakers. Okay. So, I will introduce myself. My name is Vanessa Grant. Current title is going to be Badass BA with a hashtag because I'm freelance right now. I'm also specifically a 44-year-old freelance project lead because tomorrow I'll be 45. So, hence the little birthday cake for myself because I'm celebrating myself in the next, 20, not even 24 hours, 12 hours of my early 40s. I am a 12-time certified Salesforce expert, currently working as a project lead on a new project, which I'm pretty excited about. But I've been a product owner, consultant, business analyst, Salesforce business analyst leads, and that 1 year as a solution architect, which I talk about to folks that I don't mind feeling embarrassed when I talk about that year. And my wonderful co-lead. Introduce yourself, Pay.
Hi. Sorry about that. No, I wasn't paying attention to Vanessa's housekeeping rule. But that was my daughter saying that she's got an afternoon club, so she's going to be home late, which I love her for because she's
Oh,
not known to tell me things when she's late. So, hi,
my
everyone.
son.
Go
Sorry,
on.
my son is calling. I've got to go real quick. Sorry, Pay. You're gonna have to
Okay.
lead a little bit.
No problem. Hi, everyone. So, my name is Pei. I have had about 30 years of project delivery experience in the Microsoft and the Salesforce ecosystem, project manager, but also lots of other things. Microsoft during that time, data architect, solutions architect, done the consulting thing, currently a project manager. No, and then finished as a project manager and then a delivery manager. Now I train Salesforce partners how to run discovery, and also I have written 2 books that you can see there. Like I said, this page is dedicated to my husband. He thinks I don't promote my books enough. So Salesforce Discovery, that's through the eyes of a consultant, and um, lovely talk had written my forward, which I am so grateful and very proud of. Second book is successful Salesforce projects from the client's point of view, from building a business case to writing an RFP, engaging with a partner, and then throughout the whole kind of the life cycle. So that's kind of the books I've written. Um, I've also released a course called Consulting Fundamentals, and that's for anyone who's just started on a consulting role or thinking about starting a consulting role. It's got things like the 5 day, 30, 60, 90-day action plan, what you've got to do, what's expected of you, how to communicate during in a digital environment. So a lot of I built this because there's a lot of university students, for example, coming straight into a remote role and not having the opportunity to shadow other people. So, how do they ask to shadow? How do they manage their work? And a lot of other things. So, just released that. It's called Consulting Fundamentals. I should put a link there. My husband says,
Yeah,
you can market yourself,
I,
and I didn't.
I
Go
am
on, Peg.
back. Sorry, we're both being interrupted by our children over during this call, but family first, and we can still be badass BAs and badass moms at the same time.
Absolutely. Is he okay, by the way?
He's good. He took his first like taxi drive by himself, and it's like an official like kid car service, but they're like, where do I drop him off? Oh my god. So I'm just hoping she's not like dropping him off in the middle of like nowhere. I just had to make sure because once he starts calling, I'm like, oh god. So yes, hopefully everything will be okay. They seem okay. They just weren't sure where to park. So thank you. Apologies.
Good stuff. That's me. Let's move on to talk.
All right. Our speaker today talk.
Hi everyone. Hi. First of all, can I just say you guys have got the best community name ever, right? So, Badass BA. When I got invited, I had to like double check and I was like, is it really called Badass BA? And then when I found out that pay was involved, I thought, of course, it's called Badass BA, right? But Vanessa, really good to e-meet you as well. So yes, hi everyone. I've got Astro with me today, so you can see my Astro that lives in my office. I'm matching as well, so I thought I'd wear my Trailblazer hoodie. Amazing to be here today. I'm Tokeer Ahmed. And I've probably been in the Salesforce ecosystem since 2006. So I started off using Salesforce, implementing Salesforce for a global tooling company back in 2006, which is like crazy years ago, right? I can't believe it's gone so fast. And then in 2012, I kind of transitioned into consulting with Capgemini, who are a global consulting partner actually of Salesforce as well. And what I do now day to day is I implement Salesforce solutions. So I'm primarily a functional consultant in Salesforce and I help clients implement their Salesforce solutions. And I currently lead a team of about 150 consultants in the UK, made up of architects, functional consultants, technical consultants. And for those of you that may or may not have followed me on LinkedIn, or if you're going to, you might also know that I'm incredibly passionate about diversity and inclusion in the workplace. So I use my platform as a volunteer to kind of really promote that message. And there you can see me. I actually won an award last year at the Digital Revolution Awards. So yeah, that's me. And I didn't realize you were going to take that photo, but thank you very much. And yeah, really looking forward to chatting more about today. And we're going to be talking about Salesforce discoveries and some tips, hopefully, that I can share with you all.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here. Let me figure out how to. Oh, and what a great transition! Completely
Fantastic.
seamless indentation.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to
Absolutely.
stop sharing here and let you take it away. Thank you so much.
No worries. Let me just.
And with experience since 2006 and leading a team of 150 who I presume are also all dealing with Salesforce implementations, I'm keenly see what these tips might be.
Absolutely. So let me see. Let me know when you can see the screen. Can you see the slide deck full screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool, brilliant. Okay, so welcome everyone to Discovery of Riches, 5 steps to starting a Salesforce journey. And just in the bottom right there, if you do want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's the QR code. So as I said, really looking forward to sharing some tips with you, and above all, thank you so much for giving me this platform today. So are we ready, set to discover, right? So essentially what I'm going to cover in this session is my 5-step guide on some of the key areas that I feel that you need to consider when starting a Salesforce journey. So the audience for this particular session is hopefully everybody on this call, right? So it's kind of aimed at a consultant or a BA that is either primarily going on their own to kind of discover a new business, to hopefully get them to implement Salesforce. It can also come from the perspective of a business themselves, right? So if you are a business who are interested in implementing Salesforce, you've got some processes currently which you think Salesforce might be able to help you with, it's also open for that as well. So you kind of get an idea of some of the things that you should be considering. And typically, the length of the discovery that I'm going to talk about is between 4 and 6 weeks, so just over a month, right? And in that month, some of the activities that you would be doing. So as you can see, I've got a theme around my treasure chest, which you can just see there on the left hand side. And what we're going to be hopefully doing is we're going to be opening up that treasure chest, and then hopefully be adding our riches, which you can see on the at the bottom of the screen. So those little icons are our riches that we'll hopefully be adding step by step.
So I'm going to pause you real quick. The chat is saying that your microphone is hitting your zipper, giving some crackling feedback.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
The Trailblazer hoodie has done you dirty today.
It's failed me. Let me do one thing. Okay, that should be good.
Yes, much better. Thank you very much.
That should be good.
We have a discovery of sound issues. Okay, awesome.
No, thank you, and thank you so much for pointing it out. And one last thing that I forgot to mention. So as well as our riches that we're going to add, after each step, there'll also be some extra riches. So whenever you see this little symbol pop up, those are some extra kind of riches, extra little tidbits that I've got, where we've kind of got some lessons that have been learned over the years. And that's what I'm hoping to share as well. So step 1 is the key to opening our discovery. And as you can see, our treasure chest has been opened. But in order to kind of get there, what we really need to have, we need to start thinking about basically having the correct team, right? So the correct team put together that's going to kind of help you kind of fulfill this Salesforce discovery, right? And so what we mean by that is you're kind of going to be looking for a few areas, where you're going to need support. And in some cases, this might be the same person, right? So there might be a little bit of a chameleon where, particularly if you're, say, a contractor and you're kind of doing this on your own or maybe with a limited team, these types of skill sets you might actually do via just one person. You might do it with a few people, right? So you're kind of looking for like an architectural kind of support, the kind of functional BA area, and also the kind of technical side as well. And then you might want to also look at the kind of project management side, right? So all those areas that I've talked about, those are the kind of roles that you would like to feed into your discovery. So the first thing really, once you've got your team, is absolutely all around the kind of context, right? So even before you've gone into before you even go in to kind of do this discovery for said business, it's about having that pre-conversation, right? So you want to make sure that you've had some kind of briefing session, right? And whether that be virtual, whether that be face to face, it could be a little bit of an agenda, etc., right? You need to have that pre-conversation, and sometimes otherwise known as like a briefing session, right? Because what that allows you to do is make sure that you're going to invite the correct people to your kind of discovery workshop sessions that potentially you're going to be having as part of this discovery. So correct audience, 100% is absolutely key. And also, you kind of define your roles and responsibilities as well, right? Up front, these are the people that are going to be doing the discovery. This is the audience. This is who they are. And really, people who are part of this discovery, whether it be the person doing the discovery or on the other side from the business, everyone needs to know their value, right? Of what they're bringing to this discovery and these sessions. And also, the overall kind of goal and objective of what the business outcomes is going to be over the next, say, 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes good as well to have a kind of project sponsor or a discovery sponsor. They're usually somebody from the business, and they're kind of the champion, right? So, hypothetically, a business has got a set of processes where maybe it's very manually driven, it's quite clunky, they don't have a lot of automation in there. It could be a sales process, right? And what you really want is that kind of project sponsor to be the champion of change, right? And they're kind of the captain of the ship. So just kind of make sure that you've got those roles aligned, and from both sides, who you're inviting. You kind of know already what the objective of the business is going to be. In terms of my extra riches here, just a bit of a lessons learned, right? So many years ago, I remember running a kind of being part of a discovery session, which ran over like a number of weeks. And on the kind of first session, there was a participant that came to the workshop, but they literally had no idea why they were there, and also, they had no idea why they were there, and they had no idea, like, why Salesforce and why was it being pitched this way. So that was a little bit of a blunder, right? And the other one, and funnily enough, it happened in the same workshop. There was another person who, unfortunately, from the business side, there was somebody that was going to be on annual leave. So what they did was, instead of prepping the person, they kind of just sent them at the last minute. So there was somebody that kind of came on board and straight away kind of said, sorry, I don't really know why I'm here, but I'm covering for X person, right? So, sometimes these things happen, but, the pre-conversation, roles and responsibilities, let's make sure that we've got all that foundation in before we actually go into the discovery itself. So we're on to step 2. Step 2 is all about the current state of play, right? So it's everything to do with really understanding the now, understanding the now, basically. And what I mean by that is that, you know, you really need to have a full grasp of what is actually currently going on in that business. What are their challenges? And a really good way of kind of bringing that to life a little bit is mapping that out visually, right? So if you're in the room, or if virtually as well, you know, the use of like a whiteboard to kind of map out potentially a journey, because at the end of the day, a lot of Salesforce implementations, you are eventually automating a kind of end-to-end process, right? So it's really key to kind of map that out visually, maybe with post-it notes, all that great stuff, right? So you really need to understand the current state of play, the kind of now. Really helps to kind of draw that out. And also, as you're drawing that out, there's always great opportunity and great segues to talk about pain points, right? So basically, as you're kind of mapping out, say, a particular journey or a particular challenge, you can start adding pain points, right? So what are the kind of top 3 things that is causing that particular part of the process? You know, what's the biggest pain points there? And as you're kind of doing this, and if I refer to, you know, our kind of the kind of badass BA mindset, what we would actually be doing is we'd start to very slowly start thinking about driving out some of those high level requirements, right? So you can start kind of driving out those high level requirements from some of those kind of pain points that are coming out, right? So absolutely, map out the as is process. As you're going through a process, make sure you are identifying the pain points. And sometimes, in terms of priorities, it might be good to kind of identify, say, the top 3, right? Because sometimes you can start going down like a rabbit hole and have, you know, a gazillion, right? Which is all great stuff, but you might want to, you know, top 3, top 5, depending on the scope and you know, the amount of time and budget that you've got. So you might want to kind of do top 3 as like the first pass, and really drive out, you know, you're starting to drive out those high level you know, requirements. And I guess, you know what, it's always good to always ask why, right? So kind of why is it a pain point? Why is this so important for the business? And what I've noticed is that usually, you know, you get a lot of kind of businesses that like to think that they're really special, right? Dare I say it? And you know, and what you'll find is a lot of pain points, and as these processes, you know, a lot of that you kind of see repetitive kind of pain points across a lot of, you know, businesses where, you know, it's kind of number of clicks, it's a long-winded process, they're having to do stuff manually as well as some of the things automated, they're having to use multiple systems to kind of fulfill, you know, one aspect of their process. Usually it tends to be things like that, right? And I always will say is that if you ask the why, and if the response is because we've always done it this way, right? you know that that's fundamentally you know, a pain point that you can hopefully kind of change with a requirement in discovery, and hopefully improve with some kind of automation in the future. So my extra riches here is actually, yeah, a point that I just made. So there was a session a few years ago where we kind of started talking about one particular pain point for a particular business. And unfortunately, what happened, we kind of spiraled and went down a bit of a rabbit hole. And we spent over like nearly an hour kind of just talking about someone's Excel spreadsheet, right, that they were kind of maintaining. So what it might be useful to do, if you, obviously we will probably be limited on time and budget, etc. So it's really good to kind of park some of those longer conversations, right, and park them, you know, in something like, you know, you'll be familiar with, like, you know, the car park, where you have certain items, and if you go over like, you know, 7 minutes or so on that particular item, you can basically go, okay, we're going to car park this, and you kind of move that. And then it might be that you have subsequent kind of follow-up sessions on some of those car park items, right? And that's probably a more appropriate time to kind of talk about that. So yeah, that is step 2, which is all about the now and all about the current state of play. Then we're moving on to step 3. And I have to admit, step 3 is probably my favorite step. Probably because I'm naturally quite a curious person, and it's get your Sherlock Holmes on, right? So what I mean by that is investigate. So this is the bit where you can go away and start doing a bit of the analysis of some of that work that you've done in step 2, right? So some of those pain points, and some of maybe the parts of the process that, you know, has kind of been alluded to. This is the bit where you kind of go a bit under the bonnet, right? So what you really do is you kind of understand the scope, and what's worked really well in the past for me is really sitting down with the you know, with the end users, right? Absolutely sitting down with the end users and those key user interviews, right? So sometimes spending a couple of hours or maybe half a day with potentially like an operational team that are kind of using, you know, said kind of system, etc. Be really good to kind of sit down with them and basically you know, look at some of those pain points in kind of real life. And as you're doing that, what you might start to kind of look at as well in the kind of back of your mind, you'll start to kind of put together the kind of roles and responsibilities, right, of those people, right? So you start to kind of build up, you know, these are the particular types of people and, you know, their roles that actually I'm going to have to start thinking about this, because maybe there are some kind of approvals required, which are particularly in a kind of sales cloud environment. You know, you potentially do need approvals and sign-offs for like opportunities and things like that. So you might start to kind of build up a picture of, you know, the kind of org hierarchy, the kind of role hierarchy. You might start to kind of think, actually, you know, I'm probably going to need like 2 levels of a manager. There's a kind of general profile, that type of thing, right? So you probably hopefully start to kind of build that. The other thing is as well is that you kind of are probably going to start to look at as well where the company are kind of at in terms of their kind of change management and training, because you'll get to see if you kind of interview some key people and make sure that they're across the business wherever the potential Salesforce implementation is going to be. What you're able to do there is you're able to kind of gauge kind of where they're at from a kind of digital perspective as well. So, in terms of, is it going to be a lot of scope because they're basically just using Excel, right? So if they're kind of using, say, just Excel and not very familiar with the CRM at all, then what that would mean is that would probably mean that, that would be some substantial kind of training around that. You'll also be able to gauge some of the people as well and some of the kind of champions within the business, right? So kind of gauge kind of what their level is at as well. And hopefully that will kind of feed into your kind of plan around perspective kind of training that you may or may not need to kind of plug in to that particular business. So my extra riches here, and this again might be something that people have encountered on the call. So how in step 2 we chatted about, say, like an as-is process, and and a couple of years ago I was involved in some sessions where we'd gone through some as-is processes, I think a day or two before, and there were some pain points and all of that, right? And then what happened was then I went a couple of days later, I sat down with one of the end users who was actually using the process, and basically I kind of had my little as is process, and I was like, oh, so you're going to do this now, right? And this is going to inform you of, say, some of the opportunity details, etc. And basically the end user was like, oh yeah, just ignore that as is process. Basically it's completely different, that my manager doesn't actually know, that we kind of bypass all of that, and this is what we're really doing, right? So what they'd actually done was kind of bypassed a lot of the stuff that they were doing as in the as is process, and 100% the investigation paid off, because what happened was, I sat down and thought, hold on, this is completely different to what we were told. And then we took that back to that same team from the previous step and said, oh, actually, do you know that, operationally people are bypassing all of this process? So then what we then did was we factored that in to the as-is process. So again, right, it's so important to kind of sit down with those key individuals and really kind of live and breathe some of their pain points, right? So 100% make sure you do that. Step 4 is all really about data, right? And so we say, what about my weekly report? So really what you should be doing, and it kind of varies depending on the type of business that you're doing the discovery for and the industry, right? But in most discovery sessions, it's probably a good idea to talk about data on its own, right? And what I mean by the data is, what is the data that is going to be captured and what does the business need to report on, right? And also, do some of the current pain points kind of feed into data quality, for example, right? So it's really important to kind of cover that. And there's a few kind of spin-off topics that come up when you talk about data. So when you talk about data, what it spins off to is, is there a need as part of, once you're implementing, hopefully this Salesforce solution, once you've got past the discovery, is there a need for historical data? So if somebody, say, was kind of using spreadsheet data and they're now moving to a CRM, i.e. Salesforce, does some of that data in, say, the account object need to be visible in Salesforce, right? So do you need to have a baseline of data that needs to be there? Also, there might be a different system that's currently used, and they might want to bring that information into Salesforce as a kind of starter for 10 before they kind of go live and start fully using it, right? So it will start to form a bit of a kind of data migration aspect into your mind as well, right? Historical data migration. And then the other thing as well is any kind of integration, right? So a little bit of spin-off of if there's any external systems that are currently used and potentially they need to now be kind of plugged in to Salesforce instead of another system. You can definitely talk about around that in its own session as well, right? And then hopefully what it will also draw out is the visibility of that data. So that kind of maps back to step 3, where I was talking about, the types of roles that you might start to see in the business. You can also then start kind of mapping out, which people see what types of data, right? So are there some parts of a business that only need to see a certain subset of data, and are there some users that need to see like a lot of the data that's in the system? And you kind of start to build a little bit of your kind of sharing and security model, right? Your kind of role hierarchy, your sharing rules. That will start to kind of baseline in your mind, right, as well. And then also any kind of dependencies, right? So particularly with integration or with another system that you might be pulling information from, that out and out is a dependency, right? Because you're dependent on that information being correct and the connection to be there connection to be built and be there in order to kind of pull from said system. So definitely, I think data and integration you could potentially have as your own kind of spin-off sessions within this discovery session itself. So my extra riches for this one is, and you may or may not have encountered this, but a few years ago was involved in a discovery where unfortunately the reporting team, or say like the data team, they weren't actually involved in the discovery at all. And it was a little bit of an afterthought, right? Which wasn't great. I mean, it's a great learning after, but it wasn't great at the time, because basically they kind of came in at a very last stage and said, you know what, we haven't got the sufficient amount of fields kind of developed for us to report on, because we need to report on X, Y, and Z, and you've only built X, right? So a huge lesson learned there, in that make sure company reporting teams, or data teams that they're sometimes known as, make sure that they are involved, and make sure you ask the question around reports and data during the discovery itself. And you'll have those requirements fed through, right? And sometimes people kind of bucket them as reporting requirements, but absolutely essential to do as part of a discovery. So we're almost there. We're almost there, everyone. Step 5, it's playback time, right? So you can basically see that those riches that we've talked about have been added to our treasure chest. So we've discovered all those kind of key areas that we were talking about. And now really it's your opportunity to play that back in some sort of way to the business itself, right? And there's kind of various ways that you could do this, and you know, there's obviously there's flexibility in how you want to present this back, but I'm just giving here some ideas around what you might want to include in your kind of playback of your discovery. So it'd be really good to kind of complement the as is that we talked about in step 2 with a to be process, right? And say on that to be, it kind of shows how some of those pain points are being relieved, and also it kind of shows items or kind of steps within Salesforce as well, right? So you can have a couple of swim lanes where you're kind of talking about your kind of business process, but then also have a bit of a Salesforce lens on there to kind of say, this will be, you know, a case in Salesforce, and this will get closed off automatically after X number of days, that type of thing, right? It's really good to kind of bring that to life. The other item is really how you can best visually represent some of the stuff that you've discovered, right? And the way that you can do that is 2 things, right? So one of them is sometimes, depending on the audience that you have, you might not want to have, it's really great to have the process maps and all of that, right? That's really good. But at a high level, obviously process maps can be quite detailed, right? So it's fantastic to have those at the detail level, but something that helps you pull it all together could be something like a high level roadmap, right? And what that is kind of doing is kind of showing what kind of good can look like, right? And it's kind of showing the journey of the business, where they're currently at, and then some of the functionality that's coming in, what value it's going to bring, and then what the future looks like, right? And you can articulate this in many ways, but something around a high level roadmap is probably advisable, right? Because you can kind of bring in some of the value streams, all of that, into a kind of a one pager, right? So it's a great visual representation of your requirements, right? So you might want to bucket up your requirements into epics, yeah, and then you might want to showcase, well, you know, your roadmap looks like this from your epics perspective, and the epic should hopefully map to, you know, features or functionality within Salesforce that you want to basically implement. The other way that you can essentially bring this to life is what we've done in the past, is picked 2 or 3 really key kind of pain points that were discovered early on, and really bring them to life in like a proof of concept. So show how Salesforce would kind of, you know, improve those pain points, right? So it could be something quite simple as, you know, an automated kind of case process, all of that, right? It could absolutely be something like an agent, right? So building an agent that's actually going to fulfill, say, either a sales or a service process. It's going to do some bookings for you, or it's going to find a calendar slot, or if you're an engineer, it's going to find you your next available appointment, that type of thing, right? So pick out some kind of key pain points and really bring them to life in like a very small POC. And what that does is, rather than having the requirement on paper, which you also need to have, but it will kind of bring that to life, right? And it will get real buy-in from the business as well, hopefully, because they'll be able to see it kind of brought to life. So pick, you know, 2 or 3 of those key pain points / requirements. And then I guess the other part is, a lot of companies would normally want some kind of indicative cost, right? And you might want to also kind of bring that along to the discovery as like a kind of final step to kind of say, look, you know what, it's going to be, you know, this many, we've looked at how many users you might need. This is the kind of profile and roles kind of model that we're looking at. It's going to be X number of licenses, and we're going to do it in 2 phases, right? Because you've got like 100 users that you need to bring on. And hopefully that, you know, depending on the amount of requirements and the epics that you hopefully have kind of brought to life on the high level roadmap, you should be able to kind of hopefully present some kind of estimated cost back to the business. And that's me with my kind of project management hat on, talking there. So the extra riches for this one is another learning, right? Absolutely know the audience that you will be presenting back to your discovery, should you choose to do it in this way. A couple of years ago, there was a session. I actually wasn't involved in the discovery, but I was invited to the discovery playback session at the end. And unfortunately, what happened was the playback was very much too technically focused, right? And, you know, and it was great if you really knew about Salesforce, you know, and, you know, you could kind of put it all together. You knew what some of the functionality in Salesforce was. But unfortunately, the business, the people who had been invited from the business, they weren't as technical, right? So they didn't know, they weren't as familiar with Salesforce. So unfortunately, the kind of message got lost a little bit. So do make sure that you know who the audience is that you're playing back to. And I would advise not to make it too tech focused. We collectively, the royal we, probably would love to know all about the intricacies of some of the Salesforce solution that is going to be implemented. But I guess someone on a C-suite or someone who is more kind of business orientated may not want to kind of know that detail, right? So that's why I think the POC, those little tidbits is probably really a lot more useful for them, rather than showing, you know, this is Apex or this is a flow or this is an agent in the background and all of that. So make sure that you keep that in mind. So that's it everyone. So we've covered all of our riches. So I'm just going to recap the items that we've discovered as part of our riches. So number 1, all about having the correct audience, and that context, that pre-conversation is absolutely key, right? That's the key to opening up any discovery. Make sure you've had the pre-conversation. 100% understand the now. The as is absolutely key for us to kind of continue our discovery. So understand the now, the now. Number 3 was make sure you investigate, right? So don't just stop at step 2 and go straight into kind of solution mode and all of that. Make sure you investigate the now. Make sure you have those key conversations with the operational team or the end users that are going to be using said system or that are using the system that you are potentially going to replace. Step 4 is make sure you have those data sharing and integration conversations as part of the discovery. You don't want to be kind of blindsided later on that actually there's a system that you didn't even know about that needs to be integrated, right? So make sure you upfront have the conversations around data sharing, which will hopefully build up your reporting requirements as well. And then finally, playback. So if you choose to play back to the business, which, you know, 100% recommended, I'm not really sure why you wouldn't want to do that, but make sure you play back really clearly and, you know, make sure that you've got some of those little bits of POC. Should, you know, you be able to manage to do that, be great to kind of show some of that, bringing the pain points to life a little bit and how you're going to kind of mitigate them with our fantastic Salesforce solution. And obviously the last kind of extra riches that I've got is, as I've been doing, always note down any lessons learned, right? So 100% every day is a learning day. So make sure you note that down. As you can see, they help you, they come in really handy for future work, right? So you might have a challenge on one discovery, but hopefully, it means that you can kind of mitigate that on the next one. And essentially they're going to help you gain those extra riches. And there we have it. That was a discovery of riches. I'm more than happy to take any questions, and I've just flashed up there just some of my contact details. If you do want to connect with me on LinkedIn, the QR code is there. And
Amazing.
I will stop sharing. Thank you very much.
Whew. I'm actually, while we do a little bit of Q&A, let me throw up. Sorry, not let me throw up. Let me put up the the slides. So Pei wanted to put together these slides. Do you want to talk about this, Pei?
Yes. So once upon a time, I ran a podcast. At some point, I might revisit it, but Talk was actually on my podcast. You can see that he was so suave. and, but it is really interesting. I would urge everyone to actually listen in, because we talk about a whole wide range of things. And there was so much to talk about that we did 2 parts, actually. So Talk and I used to work together. Sorry, he's at Capgemini. I've left now. So I was a project manager for one of the projects. So I think one of the questions around deliverables we can talk about as well. But what was really good about these 2 sessions is that we talked about life in consulting, how projects are being run in a large GSI global systems integrator. And also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, part 2, we actually talked about how new talent can get into the system, into the ecosystem, how to present yourself, how to shine when everyone is going for the same roles and is super competitive. So if you are looking to go into consulting, I would urge you to have listened to those 2 podcasts and reach out to Talk, because he's currently the big cheese at Capgemini. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks, Pei. So those pictures are, as you can see, so that was before I decided to stop dyeing my hair. So so I just, last year I made a decision, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for the George Clooney look, right? So I stopped dyeing my hair.
Cool. Well, we have one question, and that was actually for me. So what types of deliverables are typical after a discovery like this? So the high-level roadmap for sure. The project readout is the other one I heard. Any other things that are typical?
Yeah, so you'd probably have some kind of requirements log, right? So I think you'd probably have that. You'd probably have the as is and to be processes. So if you need to go into that detail, you can refer back to it, right? And what you typically have is those processes mapped to those requirements, right? So you'd probably have all of that. You'd definitely have, I think, which I probably didn't allude to that much in the session, but you'd probably want some kind of high level solution as well, right? Not just the roadmap. So roadmap is more around for a product owner to kind of see, epics and bits of functionality, but you'd probably need some kind of solution, a very high level solution design as to, this is what we think it's going to look like in Salesforce. And that's where you'd probably call out some of your integrations as well, right? So if there are any integrations, any dependencies, you can kind of bring that out. And then I guess the project manager in me, you'd probably want to have some assumptions and kind of risks and things like that, right? So along the way, you know, it might be very evident that you might not have all the time with said SMEs or people, right? So you'd have to call that out as an assumption to say, well, we can only deliver X, Y if we have X number of sessions, that type of thing, right? So you might want to kind of bring that to life. Obviously, I probably wouldn't advise that as your starter going into the playback, right? Because you don't want to go in and go, these are my demands, right? So you don't want to go in and do that. But it, you know, where especially if you're a contractor, you need to protect yourself, right? So you absolutely need to kind of call all that stuff out as well. So just make sure you've got that documented as well.
I've got one more question, and then I think we'll move on to some BA news since I think we're running a little late.
Very quickly, sorry.
Oh, sure.
Sorry,
What's
Vanessa. Do you want to go to the next slide?
Oh, sure, I can.
Sorry, because I snuck one in while Tuck was talking. Oh, no, it's not. Is it not? Okay, so I made.
Oh, there it is. I've got it.
There you go.
I don't know. It's just
right.
It's Google.
So, just to follow on from what we were talking about, this is a page from my discovery book. This one, by the way, which Tuck wrote a forward for, but this would give you an idea of what a discovery and the schedule might look like, including, so the last column, the example deliverables, and these are the components that build up a discovery. So this one is over 6 weeks, so that I can talk about the different sections. I thought that just kind of like rounds up what Tuck was saying. Hopefully that's useful. Sorry, Vanessa.
No, all good, and useful for me, certainly. I've like been reading Facebook all weekend. I'm getting ready for my big discovery. Okay, the last question we have is from Felice. Has the push for Agentforce or new AI tools altered your discovery process in any way?
It's a fantastic question. So it's absolutely fantastic. Yes, because I think now we do have to have that lens, right? So in your kind of 2Bs, in the POCs that I talked about, absolutely have that lens around what agents can potentially bring to some of those solutions. And then if I'm generally talking about AI, obviously you'll be able to use potentially some of Copilot or other AI to kind of help you with some of this documentation, right? So you can also kind of incorporate that. But 100%, yeah, I think Agentforce lens and prompts and specific agents per whatever, you know, industry you're kind of going into, absolutely bring those in to your kind of 2B, because it is the future. I know we're all kind of getting currently kind of you know, we're kind of learning about it currently, but 100% it's the shift is here, right? Agents and AI, the next couple of years, they're just going to get even more and more embedded into our kind of day-to-day, particularly in Salesforce. So it's a fantastic question, and 100% yes, please have the kind of agent lens on all of everything that you do, because it's inevitable that that's the way Salesforce is going, and I can't really see it being any different in the next couple of years.
Awesome. We actually have one last minute question if you have time. So Lakshmi asks, we're using another CRM right now and want to migrate to a more powerful system like Salesforce. We have one more year with the current system. To have a smooth and thorough migration, what are your tips and what would be the general time frame for implementation?
Wow. Yeah. So it's how long's a piece of string, right? But what I would say is that you need to have, you need to have those early conversations, right? 100%. If you've already got that in mind, you need to start building up like the what and the when and who do we need and what is the data going to look like. So when you're going from one system to another, there's a huge piece of work around data migration as well, right? Absolutely huge. So you really need to think about that, and what data is it going to be a like for like? Which bits of the data are you going to do you want to kind of cleanse, and which bits are you going to keep in Salesforce, and which bits actually is it an opportunity to basically rethink what data you capture, right? So could you reset and go, actually, out of those 10 data items, we only need 3 of them. So is it a cleansing activity as well? So not just from a metadata perspective, but from a data perspective. So yeah, I think definitely start thinking about all that now. You might want to, dare I say it, already run a short discovery piece, right? Which will kind of give you all of those kind of high level bits that I was talking about in the session. So my advice is earlier the better. I think you probably need to run a discovery.
That sounds like a good way to end this particular session. Thank you so much, everybody. Please give your love to our speaker in the chat. And I literally am on week 1. I think last week was week 0 of a 6-week discovery. So I frantically took notes and am very grateful for your session on a personal level, and also pay for your book. Oh my goodness, you guys, this timing could not have been better.
No, thank you so much, and just want to reiterate, thank you for having me today. And you know what, good luck for anyone that is starting their discovery, including you, Vanessa. And I hope it's a discovery of riches, right? So absolutely, thank you for having me today.
Excellent. I'm going to move on, and feel free to hang out, talk if you'd like to have some after hours, quote unquote, chat with us BAs in a little bit. I'm going to just kind of run through some news and opportunities. We're running a little behind, so I'm going to kind of fly through these as much as I can. First, FYI, cert maintenance. I'm going to have a bad Friday because I've pushed this off, but definitely check to make sure that your certifications are not going to lapse on April 11th. Yes, hopefully it won't be after dark sad talks next month. So get those certs maintained. Also, speaking of certifications, we gave away 5 certifications last month. I reached out to people directly, mostly reaching out to folks that didn't work for SIs that were going to pay for them, or people that had said that they were looking to take especially like the BA exam in the next month. For whatever reason, the cert gods have decided to smile on us, or the cert fairy, as the slide. We have 11 more to give away over the course of the next, I guess, this year. We're not sure how we're doing this quite yet. So we're still sorting through that. But I think and pay. I wasn't sure. Let me. Do we want to like still do?
We can do. So I've got the questions up already. So during, whenever you want to.
Okay, let me run through the news, and then maybe we'll do a quick thingy. All right. So, also free AI certs and training. Rest in peace to the AI. So I guess that's already gone. The AI specialist is now Agent Force Specialist. They also changed the name of one of the sessions that they offer. This thing changes every month. I'm keeping this slide, and I think I'm leaving all the strike throughs. But everybody, it's still free training. Get it done this year. Also, we had a great meetup at TDX. The one thing I wanted to point out here, besides, it was always wonderful spending time with Pay, was at TDX, which is mostly focused with architects and developers. It was really great to see that these folks were there not because, there were a bunch of business analysts, but there were actually a bunch of architects and developers that are really interested in business analysis. I didn't know most of the people at this one, as opposed to Dreamforce. So this was a really great session. Uh, just basically we love meeting in person. Calls for speakers. I have no idea when Montreal Dreaming closes, but we've got a few. If you're in Canada, Minneapolis, Louisville, Kentucky, Portland, Oregon, Clearwater Beach, Florida, or Mexico City, all these places are looking for speakers, and we love having VAs speak at these conferences because we are championing business analysis in the Salesforce ecosystem. And if you want to speak to our group, this is the item here. Of course, you could also reach out to me and pay if you can't bust out your camera quickly enough. But that is it. So I'm going to say a big thank you. I'm going to maybe pause my sharing here and maybe stop the recording, and then we'll maybe go through a little bit of unfiltered Q&A and maybe give away a certification. So thanks everybody to coming to this session. Don't go away if you want to chit chat with us for a little bit. We'll hang out for the next 23 minutes. And stopping recording now.